Little Red Book, a cover of the love classic by Toni Basil, singer, actress, dancer, and choreographer. She's a multi-talented lady, has been busy during the COVID-related shutdowns, and will be re-airing a special 60s dance class tribute to Tina Turner on the internet. She's been doing 60s go-go dance classes, and we're going to talk about it because I have Toni here with me. Welcome to the show, Toni Basil.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Toni, you put together a series of go-go dance classes for Zoom, and our listeners can watch and learn some excellent moves. Let's get right into that.
Okay.
Listeners can register on your website, tonibasil.net. You teach all sorts of dances from the 60s. What inspired you to put these together and share your dance wisdom and choreography talents with aspiring performers and dance enthusiasts?
Well, I was reminded of all the dancing I did in the 60s in those AIP films and on television, on Shindig, and choreographing or assisting David Winters on choreographing the Tammy Show, the great 1964 show. And because I choreographed Quentin Tarantino's movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, last year. And of course, that takes place in the 60s. So as I was doing the research for his movie, I realized I was reliving my own history. So after I, finished doing the movie, which was off and on, I worked on it for about a year. I just thought I'd put together a 60s workshop on Zoom. We're in lockdown, but I have studio in-house, and I thought, well, why not?
That's the same thing here. I continued the radio show because I have a studio in-house.
Right.
And Quentin Tarantino called you the goddess of go-go.
Lucky girl I am to be coined that phrase. Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to figure out about a T-shirt. I have a T-shirt line anyway. It's on tonibasil.net. You can go find them, and there are Hey Mickey T-shirts. There You're So Fine You Blow My Mind T-shirts. There You Blow My Mind T-shirts. There's a locking T-shirt of me dancing in that time period. There's a fabulous new one from one of my videos, Over My Head. I don't have a Little Red Book one yet, but I will, with the gorilla.
You got to have Shopping A to Z.
I just put out Shopping A to Z on all streaming platforms. So, yeah, there's a lot of T-shirts to be had over there. So, and they're really fun. I really love them. I'm proud of them.
On Tarantino, among the many things which make him really interesting as a director is his integration of pop culture from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, including the dance styles. So for this Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it seems Tarantino and his brain trust got together to discuss the movie and said collectively, "This looks like a job for Toni Basil."
That's absolutely right. He called me in to have a meeting, and I said, "What can I do for you, Mr. Tarantino?" And he said, "Well, I want you to choreograph my movie." I said, absolutely. Who would turn Tarantino down? It was really a dream job, I must say. He's everything that, people say he is, which is that he's got a photographic memory. And it is absolutely spectacular to work with him. I remember saying, we were talking something about the TV show Hullabaloo and Michael Landon hosting it. And I said, Michael did the Freddie on that show, and Quentin jumped up and did the Freddie. He knew the Freddie. So he's pretty slick. You got to really, keep your head together when working with him. And you got to know your stuff, because he sure knows his stuff.
And this is the kind of thing you're going to be teaching with your online Zoom classes.
Yes, I am. I will be doing that. And I've had my series, and, they'll keep resurfacing. I'll continue to keep doing them because they keep me slim and trim, keep me in dance shape. And I love talking about the history because, they're multimedia. I mean, there's videos and films from that era, me dancing from that era. I have great dancers also, international dancers that are quite famous now in the street dance community. Last week I had guests from South Korea, Amsterdam, Paris, Brazil, of course, dancers from New York and LA. But yeah, it's quite an international group I have.
These classes, one of them was a tribute to James Brown, the one we're talking about for August 2nd. And it's going to be online. You can register. You can still do that through tonibasil.net. This one's going to be a tribute to Tina Turner and the dance styles surrounding her.
Oh, yeah. And I worked with Tina since the late 70s. After she left Ike, I became her choreographer, and I've choreographed for her videos and many, many tours for her. Actually, her first tour and her very last tour that she just did, that we started in 2010. And that's online. I think you can buy it. I think it's called Tina's 50th Anniversary Tour. I think you can get it.
Yes, you can get that. That's on Amazon, I believe, and all sorts of digital outlets. You might even find it in the DVD stores, if they still even have those things around anymore. Just kidding. You were there, though, Toni, and it's not just a tribute to both of them, and they were the leaders in this field on stage, but you had this happening. The dancers, the moves, the new wave of choreography of stage shows and the movies in the 1960s, all the new dances at the time, the approaches, the inspired performers, directors, and other creators for the decades to come.
I did. I mean, those two in particular, you wanted to see them dance as much as you wanted to hear them sing. You know, they were kind of the Fred Astaire and the Gene Kelly and the Mitzi Gaynors and the Sid Charisses, you know, of the 60s. You know, I mean, they had a genre of a show that was absolutely spectacular, and it was, you know, steeped in the 60s, but boy, they had a style of their own, didn't they? I mean, no one could dance like them. No one could sing like them.
But there was a lot going on these shows, too. Even the Rocky IV movie, where James Brown did Living in America, there was just a lot going on. There was choreography on several different levels. You were right there. You were a big part of that. You were with David Winters doing all this. Talk about some of the work you did with James Brown. And I know you've really discussed the Tammy show in depth in a lot of interviews.
Yeah, thank you. I do have an interview on my channel, Toni Basil's House, of Toni Basil reflects on James Brown on the Tammy show, because there were so many different layers of dance that you could kind of see that was going on behind the singers, and then there was styles of choreography on the singers. There were the girls that and guys that backed up the whole show, which were very high-level jazz dancers that were young enough to cross over to go to clubs, so they knew the club dancing. And then there were just the club dancers that were really the go-go cage dancers and that type of dancer on the show. Then there were the dancers, the singers from Motown that performed really Chloe Atkins choreography, which was very his specific style of choreography that he did for Motown. And then there was James Brown, and who danced like no one else and sang like no one else. So I do talk about all of that on that particular little, I think it's an 11 or 12 minute documentary, but it covers a lot. And, you know, James would bring us not just dance and singing, but very spectacular theatrical. I mean, his Please, Please, Please was, you know, close to Shakespearean, really. The cape and falling to his knees, and it wasn't comical. It was very theatrical and very deep. He really gave us the full gamut. I just can't say enough about him, or about, you know, the James Brown Family Foundation. They have a foundation. They were watching the show last week. I was thrilled, and how great that at least these phenomenal performers were on television to leave us a legacy. And who would have known it was turning out to be on YouTube? Because before that, other than the great American musicals, you know, that go back to the 20s, there's very little footage of people performing live on stage or dancing on stage at all because, people did not have the facility to film.
There was nobody out there with a videotape recorder or some kind of digital camcorder, obviously, for obvious reasons, of course, taping vaudeville or anything like that.
Exactly. And the footage that there's there doesn't have sound on it because, back in the day, you needed facility to film, but that camera did not have a sound attached to it. You had to bring in separate sound and then edit it and sync the sound in. So, yeah, it was a feat. And that's even straight through to the 70s. I mean, it really wasn't until cell phones and cameras on the cell phones that any of this was really possible.
Toni Basil is with us on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Let's talk more about her choreography, on-screen adventures, and more on the dance classes straight ahead. From 1966, Breakaway, from Toni Basil on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Toni is with me now. This was a dance film starring you and directed by Bruce Conner. How did this come about?
I knew Bruce through the art scene at that time, and he was making these kind of fabulous 3-minute, 5-minute films that were shown in the museums, really. He was also an artist and a collage artist and very famous. He has passed away since, but, he's a very, very famous artist. And he knew I had recorded a song. You say it was 66, just I don't remember what exact year it was. It was, yes, I'm 28, and on the flip side was Breakaway. And he asked me if, I could do a film, dance concept to that song. So I did, and it runs in museums when his shows tour. We actually, a couple of years ago, they did a whole retrospective on Bruce, and Breakaway had its own room at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, as well as when his show was in San Francisco at the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco.
Toni, what brought you into dancing and choreography initially?
Well, I was brought up in a show business family. My dad was an orchestra leader, and my mother's side of the family were all acrobatic comedians. They worked in vaudeville. They were from Australia. My dad was Sicilian. And that's all I ever knew was watching and looking and seeing my family and my father on stage. I mean, that's my recollection, at about 3 or 4 years old. I remember standing on the side of the stage in the wings, and I continued to do that all through high school because he was the orchestra leader at the Low State in New York, the Chicago Theater in Chicago, and the Sahara Hotel in Las Vegas.
Toni Basil is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. As a lead and solo choreographer, how do you choreograph a show, movie, or other performance to enhance the talents of the person? You talked about James Brown and Tina Turner. They're incredibly talented, but to center around and enhance those talents to them, whatever character maybe you're working with in a movie, putting together everything to help tell the story.
Yeah, it's a puzzle. It has several pieces. It just depends the artist. If you're working for David Bowie or Bette Midler or Tina Turner, they all have a different way of approaching their work, but they have one thing in common, an incredible work ethic. And you certainly know their history of their work, and you try to give them back their own talent. You try to put their talent and accent their talent on a large scale. In other words, you wouldn't have the kind of dancers for Tina Turner as you would for Bette Midler or for David Bowie. The three of them require a different look because they have a different style of music. And the movement and the vision around them must reflect their music and their style and their persona. And of course, they have a lot to say about what will go into their show.
Interestingly enough, you probably have to work with people who are actors that have the dancing talent of somebody like me. I'm a radio guy. I'm a DJ. How do you work with people like me? Somebody who I'm not saying you get stuck working with them, but we're not dancers. Yet there's a show you were asked to choreograph it. How do you work with somebody like us to maybe help us dance a bit better?
Well, you do a process of not just teaching a routine, but you kind of train them in dance. In other words, you know, that mainly happens in film, because sometimes an actor like Julia Roberts might be playing a character who won dance competitions with her ex-husband in high school. So there's a scene where her ex-husband and her get back together, and they start to dance, and they go into big dance because they were big dance champions. That's another approach, because these two people are not dancers. So sometimes you have dance doubles to do the stunts. But let me tell you something. From a Julia Roberts to a Reese Witherspoon, because, I choreographed Legally Blonde, both Legally Blondes. These people are not stars because they don't have any talent. They have talent, and they have a lot of intellect, and they work hard, and most of them have incredible memories. Of course, as an actress, you have to learn to be able to do all that dialogue. So you find ways to make things work. You give them steps that look good on them. You give them a whole group of steps. You check them out. You go, oh, this step doesn't look so good, but this step looks good on you. Let's not do that step. Let's do this step. And it's another puzzle. It's from column A, column B, and column C, and then you just kind of put it all together.
And this is how you can teach all of us how to dance as well. And that's what you're going to be doing with these online classes.
Yeah, the online classes, it's on the 60s and on the dance crazes of the 60s. Because I got to tell you, those dance crazes were dance crazes because in the simplest forms, those dances were easy. Everyone could do them. That's why they were dance crazes, because pedestrians walking across the street could, go into a club that night and do the twist in its simplest form. Oh, I'm dancing. Look, I'm doing the twist. So you can take the twist and make it a very, very, very difficult dance, like a Joey D or a Chubby Checker did, but you could make it a very simple dance. And I am teaching in these classes the simple version of all these dance crazes and the performance version of these dance crazes, like Tina Turner. So they did those dance crazes, but they did a very, very advanced version.
This is kind of for dancers of all levels.
Yes, it is for dancers of all levels. It really is. That's what those dance crazes were about. If you wanted to dance and you never thought you could, and go to a club and, wow, look, I'm doing the jerk. I can dance all night. Or, if you're a performer, you can perform the jerk. And if you're a songwriter, you write a song about the jerk and you make a lot of money, because mostly what would happen with these dances, the dances came before the songs. Songwriter would see his little sister doing a dance, ask what it is. The kids say, oh, it's the jerk. And he'd turn around, write a song and have a hit record. He would make a lot of money. The kids would end up, selling pizza for the rest of their lives. But the songwriter made the money. Maybe
some sharp lawyers could have gotten a hold of that, but that's a different story for a different day. Toni Basil is with me. We are talking about Toni's online dance classes.
Yes, and they'll be if when they sign up, there's not a class, in those weeks. There will be some, because I do them, like monthly, and then I don't do them for a month, and then I do them again. I bring them back, that kind of thing. Like the August 2nd is a big review of the last 4 weeks. So, yeah, and you can always find them on my website, tonibasil.net. And, the news will say if it's happening that week or when it's going to happen. You can go buy T-shirts, or you can, go online and download Hey Mickey or your favorite Shopping A to Z, and buy that record and look at that video on my Toni Basil's house. So there's a lot to do, even if I'm not doing a class that week. And you can always follow me on Facebook.
That's right. You mentioned the songs. These are new recordings of Mickey and Shopping A to Z.
They're spanking brand new. Although on Mickey, I actually have one of the real cheerleaders that chanted on the original song. They really sound just like it. But I'm happy to say that the funds go to me instead of the record company.
That's where they should go, to the artist.
So blunt. Yes, well, that doesn't happen very often, let me tell you.
I'm with you. Remember to go to ToniBasil.net, pick up the songs, the new recordings of Mickey and, of course, Shopping A to Z. One question about Mickey, the video. I have to ask about this because I read that they don't allow cheerleaders to do this in competition anymore. How much practice did it take to get these two cheerleaders to jump through the human pyramid?
That they still do. That was the Carson High cheerleaders from Carson High, from the city of Carson. They were high school. They were champions. What you can't do anymore in cheerleading is the 3-tier. You can't go up. I think it's 3. It's 3 tiers, I believe.
I see.
There are certain stunts that have become outlawed, but those dive rolls they're still doing. I mean, yep. All that acrobatic work, that floor work is still happening.
Toni Basil is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Let's talk some more about things Toni's been doing. And yes, again, the classes. Over My Head from Toni Basil on Revenge of the 80s Radio. She is my guest. We're talking about dance classes. Yes, online dance classes. You can learn how to dance from Toni Basil.
Yes, and you know what? You can get a still from the video Over My Head, which is on my channel, and I have a T-shirt at ToniBasil.net of me from that video. So a lot of my T-shirts reflect my videos and my songs.
It was innovative for the time too. There's a lot of interesting background. This is stuff that really wasn't done. Videos were reimagined during that period, and people like you and others were doing so many different things with music and videos at the time that MTV really kind of sparked a lot of creativity there.
Yeah, you know that I recorded those videos, a lot of those videos before MTV, because I recorded for a European company, and they were doing and using videos to promo records before America was. So I was armed and ready and dangerous when MTV happened because I had videos already done. My lucky record company.
Toni, we talked a lot about your choreography and the classes. We're going to talk about the classes one more time before the end of the interview. I would like to mention that I enjoyed seeing you as a younger lad while you were on several television shows. Some of that was when you were with the Lockers.
Yes, the group that changed the face of dance, because I don't think, well, I know so, there wasn't really a dance group out there on its own, meaning dancing and not backing up a singer, being a dance group as an act on its own, since the Nicholas Brothers and tap dancers in vaudeville. I mean, we were something special of our time. There's never been anything like us since. And we actually brought street dance to a big, wide audience and really said what Tina and James said, is that our style of dance, which was street, as theirs was an art form. And it really inspired a lot of kids that danced but didn't dance ballet, didn't dance jazz, didn't dance tap. They had their own style of dance, and it was worthy of art. And I think that that's what the Lockers did for that. But and simultaneously with being with the Lockers, I was choreographing Bowie and Bette.
Yes, you
at
were.
That time. And actually, when I started with Tina when she left Ike. So that was in, I think, and I had just left the Lockers. It was the late 70s, although we did a lot of pieces together, the Lockers, even after I left in a lot of my shows. But yeah, and then I was doing Easy Rider in 5 Easy Pieces at the end of the end of the 60s.
You had a huge part in Easy Rider, as a matter of fact. You were also in Rockula. Can't forget that one.
Oh, we can't. went. I mean, I every Halloween I put out that song on my Facebook. Yes.
Toni Basil is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. A little bit of locker trivia. You were not on the What's Happening episode with the lockers, the one where they were the Rockets. But there was a connection. The connection was Fred Berry, rerun on the show, was in your Shopping A to Z video. Now that guy is some dancer.
That's right. Well, that's what I mean by after I left the lockers, we all still worked together. So I was, when they were doing What's Happening, I think I was already promoting or in England. I was either in England starting to talk to the record company, or I was in England choreographing the Manhattan Transfer, because I choreographed them here, but I went with them to England on tour and also visited the record company that I was about to record for. So, yeah. Well, we were very busy in that time period, weren't we?
Absolutely. I also love going back to the shows I used to watch in the 70s and 80s and see things that I never really saw back then. I was watching an episode of Laverne and Shirley in recent months, and of course... Yep. And I thought I recognized you on the show. It was the one where the lead characters went to Chicago to try out for a musical, and you played Mickey, who also tried out for the show. That was pretty cool.
No. You know what? Maybe my character's name was Mickey.
Right.
I don't remember that. But they were trying to do West Side Story or something like that.
That's right. I forgot which show it was, which movie. I forgot which play it was.
Yeah. Well, Cindy and they love to dance. Any excuse they could find in a script to dance, they were right on. They loved to do it.
I would like to have seen more Lenny and the Squig Tone in that one, but that's a different story for a different day. A different episode, too, or a couple of different episodes. Toni Basil is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio, and this gets us back to your acting. We talked about Easy Rider. Before that, you also did a lot of choreography in movies, and you were in front of the camera while you were doing so. One of the more memorable movies was your work in Pajama Party. You even showed off the volleyball skills.
Yeah, that's the opening of the movie, I think. I'm playing volleyball. And which turns into a musical number. I think I did 2 musical numbers in that film. One with Dorothy Lamour, actually, and then one out at the beach. And that I was the assistant choreographer to David Winters. David choreographed those movies, and I assisted him. And he always featured me.
And again, that leads us to the 60s dances.
Yep.
These are some of the dances that people will be learning in your online classes.
Yes, and we will be doing them off and on over this whole year, because we're in lockdown, and why not dance in your house?
Right. Learn from Toni Basil how to dance the mashed potato, how to dance like a real go-go dancer. All sorts of... The Jerk. No, it was not named after me. I wasn't around then. I'm pretty sure I was named after...
Steve Martin.
That's definitely not Steve Martin. That's right. Toni, you also got into Latin dances in recent years. I
did. Yeah, I mean, for about 5 years, I made a deep dive into the Latin community. Of course, when I would sing back up, my accent was so terrible, but my dancing was damn good, and I studied percussion. I studied Latin percussion, and I, of course, didn't play the big instruments in the bands, but I did play guido and campana and clave, and danced and did some backup singing, but with a bad accent. But yeah, I loved it, because there was nothing more fun than dancing and performing with those live bands. Oh my gosh. We just reviewed last week the Boogaloo, one of the dance crazes, and that was a more difficult dance. But that, I knew that dance coming through James Brown in the 66, but it really had come out of the Latin community and their music, which they were calling Boogaloo, in the early 60s, when the kids would, listen to R&B on the radio as well as their own Latin stations, and the young musicians started fusing that music and started calling it Boogaloo, and using, interestingly enough, novelty English lyrics like Bang Bang, or I Like It Like That, Watermelon Man. They they would have these catchy hook English lines in them, and they would use like a funky salsa or Latin beat that had a big R&B influence, kind of a cha-cha tempo. And wow, yeah, it was a great dance, but a tough dance. Actually, James Brown said it was one of the toughest dances he would do on stage, because it's a lot of neck and upper body work where you whack your head around a lot. He said he would get dizzy doing it, but man, I mean, there was at the Boston Gardens, he did a whole minute and a half of just straight boogaloo. I don't know how he did it, but we don't know how James Brown did most of what he did.
Well, he did say he feels good, so let's go with that.
I feel good. That's right.
Toni Basil is here with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. This Sunday, August 2nd, an online dance class. You can register at tonibasil.net. It's going to be on Zoom, so you can do this from home, learning from Toni Basil at home.
Yeah, you can hide.
The last one was a tribute to James Brown. This one's going to be a tribute to Tina Turner. What kind of dances, specifically Tina Turner-centric, that people will be learning?
Well, we found a video. Mostly, she dances on her famous songs, Proud Mary and those tunes. But I did find a video of her singing Land of a Thousand Dances, that Wilson Pickett tune. And, of course, she names all these dances. You got to know how to pony, do the Watusi, mashed potatoes. And she does all those dances in this song. So, of course, I'm going to start out the class with her singing and dancing to that, and jump off from there. Of course, we'll never be able to do the pony or the mashed potatoes like a Tina Turner, but it's something to, strive.
I will try my best. I know I'll make a fool out of myself, but if I can learn a little bit from Toni Basil, I would do it. And there will be other online classes, as you mentioned, in the future.
Yes, absolutely. All through 2020. So, stay in touch. We're going to review a lot of what we did. I probably will do also another class of the party dances, the social dances from late 60s into the 70s that Rufus Thomas made famous in his songs, like the Funky Chicken, the Breakdown, the Push and Pull. He sang a lot of songs about dances. So, I mean, that'll deserve a couple of classes just in that era itself. There's social dances throughout all the eras. So, yeah, we'll touch on everything and the history of it, and also the songwriters and how those dances came about.
Very interesting. Toni Basil with me. Once again, Toni's tribute to Tina Turner. Online dance class will be available on the internet Sunday, August 2nd. Register at tonibasil.net. There's a link on our website as well, revengeofthe80sradio.com, and you'll find it on our social media sites.
Great.
Check out Toni's website and her social media to find out more about what she'll be doing later this year, too.
Yes, tonibasil.net, Toni Basil's house. You can see all my videos starting, from the 60s. And I even have some of my favorite videos from, there's one film I have of dance from 1927 that is just spectacular. All authentic dancers. So you can check out all that stuff, my T-shirts on tonibasil.net, and, all streaming platforms. Hey, Mickey and Shopping A to Z.
New recordings of Mickey and Shopping A to Z on tonibasil.net. Be sure to check those out. Toni Basil, thank you for being with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio.
Oh, I had so much fun. Thank you so much.
Me too. Toni, let's play your new recording of Shopping A to Z on Revenge of the 80s Radio now. New from Toni Basil.
Thank you.